Hello folks. So something truly remarkable happened on the 4th of September, something we don't see too often in gaming, and it is pretty much the entire premise for this video. A lot of you will know that Hollow Knight Silksong released on the 4th of September, but many of you likely do not know that alongside Silksong, this game titled Adventure of Samsara also released on the exact same day. Now, as unremarkable as this may seem, let me now begin to compare these titles to one another. Both launched on the same day, both are 2D side-scrolling Metroidvanias, both released on the same platforms at the same price point, around 16 GBP or 16 USD. Both were made by tiny indie teams, Team Cherry with just 6 developers, and Samsara's team, while undisclosed, is comparably small. And then both spent many years in development, 7 for Silksong and 9 for Samsara. So the parallels are striking, but despite these surface similarities, the difference in reception couldn't have been bigger. Silksong exploded out of the gate, peaking at over 530,000 concurrent players on Steam within hours of launch. By contrast, Adventure of Samsara struggled to find an audience, never climbing above 15 concurrent players. So I did what any self-respecting YouTube gaming newsman does, and threw myself in with the fabled few who dared to play games of the obscure variety. I spent about 12 hours finishing Samsara, 16 Great British pounds well spent, and around 20 hours playing Silksong, courtesy of Game Pass, as I felt that only after playing them back to back could I really compare them in good faith. And here's the thing, whilst they look similar on the surface, playing them revealed just how different they really are, not just in polish or popularity, but in design, pacing, and overall execution. The contrasts between the two are sharper and more overwhelming than I first expected. Now, both are Metroidvanias, but their gameplay takes players down very different paths. So first, we're going to break down how these two experiences compare when it comes to combat, exploration, and the feel of play. First up, we have movement. In Silksong, Hornet's agility defines the experience. She's faster, more acrobatic, and equipped with tools like the Silk Thread, which lets her zip around the environment and recover quickly in combat. Every leap, dash, and climb feels fluid, almost dance-like. Whereas Samsara takes a more deliberate approach. The pixel art character moves with weight and precision. Traversal is built around classic platforming, double jumps, wall climbs, and ability upgrades that slowly open up new biomes. It's less about speed and fluidity, and more about timing and deliberate exploration. In combat, Silksong offers fast and technical duels. Hornet's Needle allows for rapid combos, aerial strikes, and reactive counters. Enemies demand precision. One mistake can cost you dearly. Combat rewards aggressive but careful play, with bosses that test both reflexes and pattern recognition. Adventure of Samsara, on the other hand, embraces its retro inspiration. Combat is simpler, with tighter hitboxes and more straightforward weapon strikes, but simplicity doesn't mean easy. Bosses are still punishing, often filling the screen with projectiles or environmental hazards, so instead of silky precision, the challenge here comes from reading patterns and staying patient. When it comes to exploration, Silksong is expansive. Its interconnected world is layered with shortcuts, secrets, and environmental storytelling. Every upgrade, from grappling threads to needle arts, opens up new pathways, making backtracking a joy rather than a chore. By contrast, Adventure of Samsara leans into the structure of classic Metroidvanias. Its 10 biomes each have a distinct theme: frozen wastelands, industrial labs, fungal caverns, etc. But exploration feels more segmented. Unlocking abilities allows you to revisit older areas, but the world is less fluidly interconnected than Silksong's vast kingdom. In Silksong, progression ties into both combat and movement. Collectible rosaries and silk abilities let players fine-tune Hornet's style. Healing is active and tied to Silk Thread, which forces you to choose between offense and recovery in the heat of battle. However, Adventure of Samsara follows a more traditional upgrade path, but with new weapons, movement powers, and enhancements that boost survivability. The loop is very familiar: defeat a boss, gain a tool, and push forward into the world. It is straightforward, but still satisfying with its retro charm. So, how do they both play? Silksong is intense, fluid, and demanding. Every encounter pushes you to master mechanics, rewarding skill and precision. And Adventure of Samsara is still challenging too, but in a different way. It taps into old-school rhythm and patience, learning enemy patterns and slowly building mastery over unforgiving environments. Both games challenge the player, but where Silksong feels like a fast, elegant dance, Samsara feels like a steady climb up a very retro mountain. In the end, both games do deliver engaging gameplay, but they very much cater to different tastes. If you want speed, technical combat, and sprawling exploration, Silksong is very much your game. But if you crave retro challenge, pixel art charm, and a more classic Metroidvania progression, Adventure of Samsara will very much scratch that itch. Now, as many of you will know, we are a somewhat small and humble channel here, which is why I'm very grateful to announce that this video is sponsored by Xmod. Xmod is an intuitive all-in-one modding tool that includes thousands of free mods, cheats, and trainers for over 5,000 different single-player PC games, and that number is ever growing. I've been using this for the past few days to help streamline my Silksong experience for this video, but it's also come in very handy over the past 6 or so months in regards to putting together guides and getting around games, etc. All of the most popular releases are available, and any new titles are added as of day one, so already we have plenty of mods available for the likes of Hell is Us, Cronus the New Dawn, and Borderlands 4, with some of these Borderlands 4 mods helping directly with the game's performance and quality issues. You simply load up any games you already own, and through a series of very easy to use toggles or sliders, you can quite literally customize the experience to your liking. There's also an ever-growing collection of community mods, and even a range of additional quality of life options per title. I was apprehensive about modding at first, but since using Xmod for the past 6 months, I've been very happy with the results, and the effort involved has been below even minimum. So, whether it's enhanced performance, streamlined gameplay, or just random old fun that you're looking for, I can assure you that Xmod has it all. And after all, it is absolutely free. I'll leave a sponsored download link in the description below for anyone interested in modding, or maybe just wanting to support the channel and check out Xmod along the way. Otherwise, a huge thank you to Xmod again for making this video possible. Now, gameplay isn't the only thing that defines a Metroidvania. Atmosphere is just as important, with the visuals and audio that breathe life into these worlds. So, how do Hollow Knight Silksong and Adventure of Samsara compare when it comes to art direction and sound? Silksong very much continues Team Cherry's tradition of breathtaking hand-drawn animation. Every environment is crafted with painstaking detail, overgrown citadels, shimmering caverns, and ruined villages, all very much alive with subtle background movement. The art direction leans into elegance and fluidity. Hornet's animations are sharp, precise, and bursting with character, and I felt like it was a living painting, pretty much full of motion. However, Adventure of Samsara goes for something entirely different, which would be a retro pixel art style. Each of its 10 biomes is distinct, from frozen wastelands to industrial ruins. The environments are sharper, more abstract, and deliberately simple, capturing the feel of classic Metroidvanias while still trying to add modern flourishes. Where Silksong wows with polish, Samsara tries to win with charm, nostalgia, and bold colour contrasts. In Silksong, enemy design is highly expressive. From tiny twitchy insects to towering bosses, every creature does very much move with purpose. Attacks are animated with a theatrical flourish, helping players learn patterns whilst keeping battles visually striking, with the level of detail in their design selling the world as dangerous yet alive. However, Samsara's enemies lean into a retro aesthetic. Bosses often fill the screen with attacks. The design's less detailed but more exaggerated. The pixel art style emphasizes readability, big swings, bold shapes, and recognizable silhouettes. It might not have the same fluidity as Silksong, but it still nails the clarity and intensity of old school boss encounters. Sound design in Silksong is layered and atmospheric. The score is very orchestral, haunting, and deeply tied to the environments. Strings swell as you climb a cathedral. Eerie tones drift in as you explore forgotten ruins. Every swing, parry, and death cry is crisp, very much helping immerse you in the tension of combat. In Adventure of Samsara, the music pulls from retro inspirations, with tracks that lean into its pixel art identity. It's not as sweeping or cinematic as Silksong's soundtrack, but it does still deliver a nostalgic punch. Audio cues are snappy and clear, helping players anticipate attacks and navigate the chaotic screen during boss fights. So, what is the takeaway? Silksong overwhelms with detail and atmosphere. Its visuals and audio are crafted for immersion, pulling you into a lush, dangerous fairy tale world. Adventure of Samsara, meanwhile, builds into its identity on retro charm, bold pixels, punchy soundtracks, and the design language that embraces clarity and nostalgia over realism. Both succeed, but in very different ways. One is a sweeping symphony of art and music, and the other a pixelated ode to Metroidvanias of the past. Put simply, Silksong is the genre's visual and audio perfectionist, elegant, fluid, and unforgettable, whilst Adventure of Samsara is the scrappy retro challenger, raw, charming, and fiercely nostalgic. Which speaks to you depends on whether you want modern artistry or a throwback with heart. Now, when it comes to exploration, Silksong and Adventure of Samsara couldn't feel more different. Silksong delivers a sprawling, interconnected world. Its environments are layered with shortcuts, hidden passages, and secrets that reward curiosity. Each new ability, whether it's a thread-based grapple or a movement upgrade, doesn't just unlock the next area, but also transforms how you traverse the entire kingdom. Backtracking feels natural and rewarding, turning the map into a living puzzle box. Adventure of Samsara takes a more segmented approach. Its 10 biomes are distinct and visually striking, but they're structured more like traditional levels. Progression is straightforward: defeat a boss, gain a new tool, and push into the next zone. While upgrades open some backtracking opportunities, the world doesn't weave together in the same fluid way. Exploration here is more about tackling self-contained challenges than uncovering one massive, interconnected labyrinth. So, whilst both games embrace the Metroidvania philosophy of ability-driven progression, Silksong emphasizes seamless world design and player freedom, whereas Samsara opts for clarity, structure, and a retro-style progression loop. And as a very little personal side note, backtracking in Silksong felt very organic and natural and very enjoyable to do, whilst at times backtracking in Samsara could be quite painful and eventually began to feel like a chore. As for combat and challenge, in Silksong, fights are fast, technical, and precise. Hornet's Needle and Thread encourage fluid combos, aerial maneuvers, and aggressive play. Healing is tied directly to your Silk resource, forcing constant risk-reward decisions. Do you strike harder or take a moment to recover? Bosses demand tight reflexes and mastery of patterns, making every battle feel like a duel. Adventure of Samsara takes a more retro-inspired approach. Attacks are simpler, hitboxes are tighter, and movement feels heavier. The challenge comes less from speed and more from endurance, learning enemy patterns, managing space, and surviving lengthy encounters. Bosses often overwhelm with screen-filling projectiles or environmental hazards, making patience and pattern recognition the only keys to victory. Both games are tough, but in very different ways. Silksong will test precision and reaction speed, rewarding fluid mastery. Samsara tests patience and adaptability, trying to channel the punishing rhythm of classic Metroidvanias. One feels like a razor's edge duel, the other like a relentless trial by fire. Storytelling is another area where these two games take very different paths. In Silksong, narrative is subtle and environmental, dialogue is sparse, lore is buried in cryptic descriptions, and the world itself does most of the storytelling. Much like its predecessor, it leaves space for interpretation. Players piece together the fall of kingdoms, the roles of its insect denizens, and Hornet's place in the larger overarching story. It's less about direct exposition and more about discovery through atmosphere. Adventure of Samsara takes a more traditional approach. Its story is delivered more directly, with clear theming around cycles, reincarnation, and the struggle through different realms. Dialogue and cutscenes are used to guide the player, and whilst the narrative isn't as ambiguous as Silksong's, it does ground the experience with a defined arc and mythological flavour. Samsara's lore may be less mysterious, but it's easier to follow and more overt in its world building. So, whilst both games frame their stories around themes of struggle and persistence, Silksong weaves its lore into the fabric of the world for players to interpret, whereas Samsara delivers a more straightforward narrative rooted in mythic cycles. One is enigmatic, the other direct, and which you prefer depends on how you like your stories told. Both games also differ in how approachable they are for players. Silksong eases you in with a gradual learning curve. The early areas act like training grounds, teaching movement, combat rhythm, and resource management step by step. While still challenging, it's structured to reward persistence without overwhelming new players right away. Its accessibility lies in how naturally mechanics are introduced. You learn by doing, and the game trusts you to adapt. Adventure of Samsara is far less forgiving, however. Right from the start, combat is punishing, movement is strict, and bosses demand mastery of mechanics with little room for error. The game assumes familiarity with classic Metroidvania conventions and doesn't spend much time teaching at all. For veterans, this can feel like a satisfying throwback, but for newcomers, the difficulty spike can be a little bit jarring. In short, Silksong aims for broad accessibility through a carefully paced learning curve, while Samsara caters more to genre veterans, offering a steep climb that rewards persistence, but risks shutting out less experienced players. Originality is also where the contrast between these two games can also be seen. Silksong, whilst building on the foundation of Hollow Knight, does try to push the formula forward. Hornet's unique movement and combat systems create a distinct identity, and the game expands the world with new mechanics like silk-based abilities and refined exploration tools. It's familiar, but it reimagines enough to feel like more than just a sequel, and I did feel like it was an evolution. Adventure of Samsara, by contrast, wears its influences openly. Its design leans heavily on the classic Metroidvania blueprint, segmented biomes, ability-gated progression, Retroid boss design, etc., with far less emphasis on reinventing the formula. While it doesn't innovate as boldly as Silksong, it finds originality in its themes of reincarnation and cycles, giving it a narrative and stylistic identity that does help a little bit to set it apart. So, whilst Silksong pushes the genre forward with mechanical and structural innovation, Samsara takes a more traditional path, polishing the familiar and weaving it with mythic storytelling. One breaks new ground, and the other honours the past. So, what have we learned by putting Hollow Knight Silksong and Adventure of Samsara side by side? On the surface, the similarities are uncanny. Two indie Metroidvanias released on the same day at the same price point and both years in the making, but beneath this, they are fundamentally different experiences. Silksong thrives on fluidity, fast technical combat, seamless world design, subtle environmental storytelling, and innovations that push the genre forward while remaining accessible to a wide audience. Adventure of Samsara stands as a more traditional challenge, heavier movement, segmented biomes, punishing boss fights, and a straightforward mythic narrative. It leans into retro design philosophy, rewarding persistence and pattern recognition over precision. Where Silksong feels like a polished evolution of modern Metroidvanias, Samsara very much feels like a love letter to their roots. One dazzles with scope and refinement, the other with raw challenge and thematic boldness. And I feel that is very much the beauty of it. Two games that share so much on paper end up carving out entirely different spaces for themselves, one becoming a global phenomenon, whilst the other a niche but meaningful entry into the genre, and together they show just how wide the Metroidvania spectrum can be. Now, I have had a ton of fun putting this video together, folks, and as you can imagine, it was quite the undertaking and has taken a lot of effort on my part. I don't usually ask, but if you've made it this far, then do feel free to drop a like and or comment below. It would go a long way for this video and the channel as a whole, and thank you nonetheless. Anyway, that would very much be it for this video. I have a range of guides and news videos on the channel already, so do feel free to stop on by and check things out. And with time, I plan to make more videos in line with this one, where we take a concept and run with it to see what the results might be. Anyway, thanks for watching, folks, and until next time, peace.